I'm excited to introduce our next speaker, Nicola Brown. Nicola blends behaviors and ecological science with strategic design, helping organizations thrive in complexity. With over 2 decades of experience, she has developed life-inspiring frameworks that enhance team collaborations and adaptations. She worked with leading tech companies using bio-inspired approach to drive innovation and build resilient teams. Please give it up for Nicola Brown.
Thank you. So Tim left us with a question about how might you adapt and implement relational mapping. And my opening question is, what becomes possible when we shift from designing for efficiency to designing for life's natural ability to adapt, connect, and thrive? And to actually live and feel into that, I'm going to ask us to stand, those that are in the room, and those virtually, stand in your context, if you can. So just stand. And as you stand, notice if you shifted to give yourself more space, or if you just stood up directly from where you were seated. No response just yet, just notice. And gradually pay attention to how you are breathing now that you're standing. And as you notice how you're breathing, I invite you to cross your hands. Notice which hand you chose to put over which. Notice if you moved your feet at that time to another movement. And then I want you to do a movement. If you were water in this moment, how would you adapt? What now feels possible that was not possible 3 seconds ago? And this is now inviting conversation.
I can leave my area.
Ooh, you could leave your area, okay?
If we had some music, we could dance.
That's what I thought we were doing.
You thought we were dancing?
Yeah, I thought we were gonna start dancing. I was like,
Disco showdown or something.
Amazing. So when we think of water, we think of dance. When we're designing, do we put those two together, that adaptation, that movement, or do we forget it and not hold that context? And so part of adaptation is my assertion of adaptation is that ability to hold multiple contexts and still move forward in some particular way. And so layering on to, you were just water. Now, if you were a tree, what movements would you do? A tree that was just recently watered. So you're reaching upward, you are stretching. Notice if you are moving to allow other trees to grow. That is our mycelium network. That is the undercurrent of every tree that you see in any environment that is always connected. It's interconnected, and interdependent. Now, holding that in mind, what becomes possible with this mutual adaptation that just happened?
Is it building relationality because we're doing the same thing or feeling the same ways? And
Possibly. That's possible. That becomes a possible future.
Responding to what the people around me are doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Getting in sync.
Making room. And what happens when we make room?
We can spread out.
You can spread out, you open space for possibility of what you don't know, but something can emerge because there's now space for something to emerge.
Others can flourish and grow.
Okay, flourishing and growing. So now, I want you to think about, you've just become an ant. And how do ants move about and still relate to each other in a context? So I invite you to move.
Everything's tight.
Yeah, like what are you picking up and moving around? Like, do we need to? Cooperation. Yeah. We're doing like an ant.
Come on, get line.
Who's leading, who's following?
This is the way, this is the way, this is the way.
Lead us to the picnic.
Wanted to be an ant.
And so I want us to freeze where you are. Notice where you are in proximity to where you started. Notice how you feel in your physical being in proximity to where we started. What relationships are you holding now in mind that you weren't holding when we started? I'm going to invite you to now go in pairs and have a conversation about what we just did. And those virtually, I'm going to invite you to also go into breakout rooms to pairs or triads and discuss what is emergent for you around an adaptive relationship. What is becoming possible?
Yeah, I'm never gonna forget meeting you. I know. I'm over here. Let me return this person to here. No, I'm here. Maybe sit over here.
Steven? I'm Lauren. I'm at Okay. Yeah, where are you? So, industrial design practice. For me, the big difference was also
see what's happening and react to it.
I started
see what's happening, like as the react.
So how do you feel about this? I was gonna write down some of the things.
being an
I
ant.
think also what you're getting at is like doing a shared thing. One with everybody exposed on the or they're just like doing bodies in space, and now
Your body
Right.
collection. That's cool, but I think
Yeah,
also
right. And it becomes it's like easier to make that. It's like right. It's like it's not a choice. I don't have to like intellectualize my way through planning a strategy.
Yeah. There's like, well, I mean, it's like part of someone else has the stage, like, asking a question. Go as far as to respond to
I'm trying to figure out how do I do that with my students? Like, how do I
waiting.
how do I
It's like we're kind of all acting together, all acting in that space. It's very collaborative, all of a sudden, like, very distracting. So it's kind of like nice to be invited to because we're always like, I'm always waiting for permission. But it's my turn. Yeah.
It's kind of the same.
Right. Then there are questions there about individualism and to what extent it's important to be
I think I've done that at this conference. Oh wait, am I the
That's fine.
I feel like we only said we have 4 more minutes before we're gonna start. So, but I like that idea that we're so like I think that this idea is talking about something
So we're gonna come back from breakouts and find our way back to where we were seated, and those in the breakout rooms are going to join us back in the main in 4 seconds. And now that we're back, I would actually like to start with our online community and hear what are their reflections and what some of the conversation went from, because they started out just observing us in the room and also doing some of the movement.
If anyone wants to unmute and speak up, or Tyson or Mac, if you want to come out here and throw a question out or share a comment, you're welcome to do so.
I can mute. It was fascinating how people did differently here, where I was just like an ant myself and kind of got to know, and watching all of you actually collectively became so much bigger than the individual.
That again?
Oh, sorry, it's hard to hear. Let me unplug this thing. I just said that it can almost be counterintuitive. Like when I was here alone and the ant prompt came up, I kind of got on the floor and like kind of became small and crawling around. And you actually became so much bigger, like individually. Actually, it was you're actually being pretty big, and you're but collectively you're doing something so much bigger than that was amazing to see possible.
Thank you. And that's the reality, that sometimes the things that shrink us is also the thing that can be expansive. And so it's not a binary of it's one way all the time. The context matters, which is why I asked you to hold multiple contexts as we layered on. As we started with water, then you were a tree that watered, then you were an ant that could have been around that said tree, or you could have been in any other environment to layer that in. Anyone else online willing to share? How about in the room?
Oh, well, we were talking about, Stephen and I were talking about this idea of like, throughout the cycle, it went from the sort of like waiting to participate to being like actively engaged. And we were talking a little bit about being more confident, sort of projecting ourselves into the space. And like where that maybe comes from, it's based on people's like lived experiences, like from a college professor perspective, we might be okay with like participating full body, whereas someone else might not have been able to. But I really appreciated the ability to sort of like connect energetically with people in a way that was like permissible, because it's like, you know, do you have permission to take up space and adapt? Or I feel like so many of us are adapted to like staying quiet while the person on stage is presenting and this is their time, and in order to do that, we sort of adapt and shrink ourselves. But like being invited to participate, I was much more, it's fun.
Thank you. Anyone else willing to share? We had lots of conversations and movement. Or to frame it another way, if you were to tell someone about the adaptation that you just made in this relationship, how would you describe it post the session for someone that's not in this room with you?
But at the same time, I've been around ants, so like, I do a lot of hiking, and so I am outside. But even though I don't know a lot about ants, I know they follow each other and fly. So there was like a tapping into something that's a little bit intuitive. I didn't have to think about it too hard. It just what the ant can do, something follow. So there's something kind of wonderful about that. Getting out of the mind of it, tapping into something that
And in an adaptive relational architecture, there are multiple ways of knowing, and we become conditioned to only know what we think about knowing in the conscious sense of thinking with our brain, versus sensorially, our body is always thinking as we're moving. What is our body thinking and realizing and adapting to as we are navigating and moving and living? And so as part of this, everyone would have, online you would have received a PDF, and here in person you have a little worksheet and workbook. And the idea is that if you're designing with life, there are some adaptations and some ways of working that enable and embody you to then navigate and negotiate in a different way. And so I hope that this worksheet and workbook and the way that we experientially work together and dialogue together will support your design practice as you move forward. And that brings us to a close.
Thank you. I know there's not enough time to ask all the questions and engage with all of these strategies and stories, but they will be around. Our presenters this morning will be around throughout the day and tomorrow off and on. And so please seek them out, ask them to join you for lunch, ask them to come on Zoom or throw your questions in there, and we'll make sure they're answered and we can get you that guidance and feedback.